Hey guys, I'm just going to show you how I'm setting up my new worm bin. It's bigger than the other worm bin, so what I've done, I've put some bedding in for the worms, which is about 2 inches of leaves, which I've soaked. Then I've put about 1 inch of peat on top, and then I've scattered some charcoal on there. Crushed charcoal, because that will become activated charcoal, and I'm just putting in some chipped up eggshell. This is for the grit. This is like a grit for the worms, because the worms do need this grit. It encourages them to lay eggs. I'm doing this before the next horrendous rain shower kicks in. So this is my existing worm bin. I just want a much bigger one, because I suspect that it could be getting a little bit crowded in here now. There's an awful lot of worms in here, and they have mostly all come, well, they have all come from the hot compost bin. So when I'm emptying the hot bins, I just, grab handfuls of worms, and I've just been putting them into this container. And they've been in the polytunnel all winter to keep them a bit warmer, keep them more active. So there's an absolute massive abundance of eggs here on the surface. So I'm trying to just get all these eggs, which will be towards the surface. I'm just trying to get them in a pile, then they can go back onto the top rather than burying them too deep. They've been doing a fantastic job, these worms in here. I only put this bedding in here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, so you can see it's still pretty fresh on the bottom, the bedding. And I suspect all the worms, so all the worms are in the leaf mould in the bottom, which they absolutely adore. Again, there's hundreds and hundreds of eggs in this leaf mould base, but it doesn't really matter what you put in here, the worms will turn it all into compost, and worms do love leaves. So you can see the sheer amount of worms in here, eggs, cocoons. Yeah, I just want to get them all transferred into this bin now. I do not like being disturbed, worms, so I'm sorry, worms. And as they break down all these leaves and all this other organic matter, I will just keep feeding the bin with leaves of plants, grass, all kinds of stuff really. Anything organic. That's the worms. They're staying here now. This is a plastic box with a base, a polycarbonate base, thick polycarbonate like that, all silicone sealed all the way around. That's the lid. Yeah, so these worms are staying in here. And what I will do, I will start, when I start putting new food into this bin, it won't be for a while yet, but I will start putting the food at this end of the bin. And then as the worms get hungry, because they've used up all this as food, they'll start moving towards this end to eat this new food. And when they start doing that, I will start excavating the compost on this side and using it. And I will keep doing that, and I will work my way along until I hit the main bank of worms, and then I will start putting the new material in that end, so the worms eventually head that way. Each time I do this, when I get an empty space, I'll put new bedding in, some dried leaves, some eggshell and some peat or something, just for bedding, and then I'll start piling up the organic matter on top. There's an old banana, that was a black banana from the fridge. They've totally eaten that. Yeah, so that is it. And that, if you don't know, if you ever find these in your soil, that is a little worm cocoon. There'll be around between 5 and 10 little eggs inside there that the worms will hatch. And if you get the conditions right for the worms, as I saw then, there was thousands of little cocoons in there. All that remains to do now is put this cardboard back on top, and this cardboard keeps the compost top moist so that the worms come up and feed on the top. Yeah, because you don't want the compost drying out ideally. They don't like, obviously, worms do not like dry environments. Now I'm going to put that plastic sheet on there as well. And that is it for the worms. And at some point I will bring you back to this and I will show you what the worms have been doing. Right, I'm now going to show you the hot compost bin. I'm going to do this quick because Armageddon is about to befall us. Right guys, and into the bin. Whoa. Oh yes, we have heat. I've got this meat thermometer in here, which is saying 55 degrees centigrade. What's in here is mostly cow manure and straw, but I did put some pigeon manure in last week, and I put some old flour in, which I had at home, so that's what this white stuff is. And when the flour went in and the straw, I put some wood chip in. I also put in some mashed up calabrese or broccoli, purple sprouting broccoli stalks, and they're just a good mixture of just mostly cow manure really and straw, and it's really kicked it off. So yeah, hopefully this just stays gently active. It's not as manically active as it would be in summer because there's not really enough green material going in, but as things like grass clippings become available and straw, that's when I'll start building this box up now. I've got enough compost this year. I've had enough compost to compost the entire allotment, including the polytunnel. So what I'm doing now is making the compost for the back end of this year. So September, October, November time, I want ideally 3 bins full of compost. And I like this hot bin compost because there's no weed in it, or very, very little weed in it. So you put this on top of the ground as a mulch and no weed is growing. That's why I really prefer it over horse manure and cow manure. That's why I put the horse manure and any kind of manure in here, because the heat tends to kill any weed seed in there. May as well very quickly show you the new cold frame, guys. So it's all finished now. It is lovely and warm in here. And I've decided, rather than putting a solid floor on, which I originally thought I would, I've actually put compost on the ground. I've just aerated it a little bit by just putting the fork in and just heaving the ground up a little because it was so compacted here. Then I've put about 3 inches of compost in because I've decided that I'm going to grow the peppers and chilies in here in the ground rather than pots. And the roots can get out and look for nutrients. But it is lovely and warm in there. I've put these flags against the wall here, and they are hot to the touch now because I've had sun on them this morning. So they'll be releasing heat into this cold frame long after this rain comes in. That was it, guys. It's just a quick one. I'm going to skedaddle off in a minute because that big grey cloud is just come over. It is going to pour down again. So catch you in the next one.